Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics, in association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner. Just want to take a second to thank you for your commitment, your energy, and your investment in becoming a part of this community. This platform was developed based on the sentiment that we are each the expert of our own story, and expertise always holds value. It's an athletic therapy-driven discussion, an integrated and collaborative space for practitioners, athletes, and sports performance personnel to grow together. Organic dialogue, passionate pros. Let's chat. Thanks for being here. Away we go. Session 71. Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast, now sporting a fresh new look, a fresh new logo. Appreciate everybody's support in being here. Appreciate everybody's time in being here and for listening in and being a part of this thing. It truly comes down to those that are listening, those that are sharing their stories. And this is what it's all about. Dogs barking, all of the things. Session 71 this evening is with Megan Stewart. Well, just a quick thank you to our sponsors, our primary sponsor, Mobility Tape, the only heat-activated kinesiology tape on the market. If you haven't tried them out, give them a try. A no-brainer for therapists. Athletes are using it all over the place. We're worth a shot and more than happy to answer any questions. Our other sponsors include Epic, that's EPOCH, my good friend, Jason Dowse, the founder and creator of Epic. Check them out at live.epic, and Benchmark Athletics, that's at Benchmark Athletics. As always, brought to you in association with our national body, the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. Megan is a longtime volleyball athlete, outdoor enthusiast who worked as a physio assistant for 4 years prior to getting into athletic therapy at Sheridan College. In her time there, she had opportunities to work with Seneca College Athletics, the Toronto Athletic Club, and Apple Creek Sports Medicine. In doing so, she developed a huge passion for contact sports like rugby, football, and cheerleading. Upon graduation, she worked in Ottawa before setting off to Edinburgh, Scotland for 2 years. There, she worked with a rugby team, performance arts group, and the general public. Upon return to Canada, Megan worked in long-term care, fall prevention programs while working field events and building a private practice. She also did a 6-month stint in Petawawa with our Session 39 guest, Victoria Cleary. She is currently a clinic manager in Ottawa at Integrate Therapies, where she has been managing a team of 22, ranging from physios to chiropractors, RMTs, naturopathic doctors, and MDs during this crazy time in this pandemic. She is an advocate for the athletic therapy profession and has certainly lived and seen it through multiple lenses. Megan, appreciate you coming on board to let you say hi, and then we'll jump in here.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to sit here and chat about how awesome athletic therapy is.
Well, awesome. I think there's a lot of people out there that would love to hear it and love to hear it through your lens. And that's what this is all about, sharing your story through the bio. Obviously, lots of different lenses, different hats that you've worn, different countries, different parts of this country. Where did it all begin? Let's go back to the beginning. And you were a physio assistant for a little while and then made your way into athletic therapy. How did that sort of start? And then what lit the fire and kept it going to this point?
I biggest thing I always remember, my dad would get injured and I would be obsessed with the way his sling held, or like the way his tensor wrapped around his arm, or things like that. My parents always said when I went to the dollar store, I'd buy tensors, and I kind of remember that from a really young age. But
Nice.
that, just like being that and sporty aside, like I played volleyball my whole life, and going into high school, like I knew I wanted to do something athletic. And at first I thought it was going to be an aerobics instructor, but that was way too much work. Not really long-term career goal in my ideas, but I went to work as I went to school for physio assisting, and that just kind of ignited my want to be into physio. So I knew that we needed a bachelor, and that was the same year that physio just turned into a master's program. So I just missed like the 3-year physio route. It turned into the 7-year physiotherapy route. So I was
Right.
trying to figure out a bachelor to take that wasn't kinesiology, because honestly, a lot of my friends that were older in volleyball, they went through RKin. I just sitting in a classroom listening to stats didn't really appeal to me. I'm not the biggest academic, and I continue to say that I'm not, but I'm more like I wanted to get hands-on. And my dad went to college, so I was like, there has to be a happy in between where I could still work or do something, and that's where kind of massage therapy came up. But one of the physios that I worked with at NDs and Sports Medicine, she found the athletic therapy bachelor, and she said, well, if you take this bachelor, you're going to be able to get into physio after, as long as your marks are high enough. That's the way it works now. And I just said, okay, cool, let's try it out. So I was a physio assistant for 4 years, went back to adult high school to get the right courses for that course, because OAC and all that kind of annoying stuff had changed. But finally, I got accepted into athletic therapy. And my second year, when I saw Emerge and I was, emergency conditions and taping and bracing and stuff, I was like, I don't need to be a physio. I can be an AT. Like, I love MSK. I love being on the field. And that's kind of where I wouldn't say athletic therapy was the goal, because I didn't know what it was, but I knew that physio was my goal. But I thought this was the closest way to still get the best hands-on education while going towards physio. But as soon as I graduated and I was working and I started with like possibly going to Scotland and stuff, I was like, I don't need to actually get my physio. I can just do it as an AT. And looking back, I sometimes have judgment calls of whether financially it was the best thing or not, or what have you. But like, I wouldn't change it. Like, I love what our actual education is. It's just being a mechanic for the body, and MSK, like general aches and pains and stuff. Like, I just think that it's invaluable, and like we're totally at the same level as them. It's just that we just went to school with a different lens. So that's kind of where athletic therapy like held for me. But I honestly was going to school to be a physio.
Yeah. No, awesome. And I think like there's a couple parts of that jump out. One, the timing, you just never really know where or when is the right timing, but things tend to line up and you find it when you need to find it, or it finds you. And the next lesson, that's been woven throughout any number of our guests is that progress and sort of success and getting to where you get to is not necessarily a linear path, but it is a path of learning and continual adaptation. And you talk about like musculoskeletal, assessment. And I think that's a language that, regardless of our profession title, being able to speak that language is completely, you're spot on. It's invaluable. It goes anywhere. It can travel borders. It can cross borders. It can do all those things. And you can speak that language with any other human being that you come in contact with. And I think that is absolutely massive. So PTA into AT in the Nepean, Ottawa area. Then you go overseas. You go to Scotland. What was the draw in Scotland? How did that initiate? And the reason I ask is, well, A, to get to know you, share your story. And then B, there's a lot of students out there that are trying to consider, can I go overseas? What do I need to do? What pieces do I need to enhance, or all of those things? And I know you're speaking from your experience. So from your experience going to Scotland, I guess the why of Scotland, and then the how maybe after that.
I got the travel bug when a rugby team brought me to New Zealand in 2011, and that's when it was my first real like solid big trip. We went for a month, and the fact that people knew not what athletic therapy is, but what the sports trainer was or what have you, and then I could sit there and tape an ankle. They knew what I was. I was like, okay, like this is something, like this is a language. We can go do this. So whenever I was done with New Zealand, I really wanted to go to New Zealand first, but my sister lived in Brighton, England, so I went to go visit her. ancestral.
Yeah.
I'm Irish and Scottish. We go to Edinburgh, Scotland. You fall in love with the pubs, the culture, like everyone's just super, super nice. So I thought, you know what, if I am going to travel instead of doing it to New Zealand, because the plane ride was rough, I was like, Scotland is much more feasible. And I said, I could be around my sister. It won't be that big of a deal. So I applied for a youth mobility visa. I was in the middle of finishing my exam, and I kind of made the choice to not challenge my written because I couldn't change my insurance on the CATA end. I couldn't put it on hold. So
Okay.
it's like I had to pay full dues if I was fully certified. So I went over, and then I found an insurance company to cover us. I found a first responder course to cover me for just like the field, kind of like our first responder does for field work when we're in school. And then Balin's insurance company, which was really helpful in terms of covering me for everything I wanted to do. And it just kind of opened my eyes as to how government and regulation and all that kind of stuff is different for every country.
Mm-hmm.
In Canada, the rules were a lot more stringent, but in the UK, they give you a piece of paper with the things that you want to do, like acupuncture, manipulations, and you just circle whatever one you want. You send it back to them, and they give you a quote. It was unreal, but it was really interesting. It covered me for 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the draw of Scotland was, I guess, like a lot of the rugby players that were international around that came to Seneca and the Toronto area that I was working in. So they were always like really polite, really nice. So yeah, there's just a draw. My ancestors, like, just I love Scotland. It was an amazing experience. I got to see a couple of their like research centers of where they do school or where they do schooling and testing. Everything was so small because like everything is just so small there. So I
Yeah.
couldn't really get the opportunities like we get here. Like I used to knock on doors of gyms and they'd happily have you in with their clinic and things like that. But in
Mhm.
Scotland, it's like 10 by 10 rooms. So I really started to appreciate how small of a space you can work in as an AT, because all you need is your hands, massage table, whatever plinth. You can go on the field, you can treat people, you can go to their house, you can treat them. Because the American girl that I worked with, she was a massage therapist. We literally had a 10 by 10 room that we pulled the chair out, they waited outside, you have your TD square, and that's it. And like, but you made your living, like that's how you made your money. And that's one thing that I don't think a lot of ATs, like, either the new grads aren't confident enough or people just don't anticipate you can work anywhere you want. Like, as long as you have those tools like in your
Yeah.
toolbox and got your
Yeah.
brain, you can do it. So it's just a great thing that not a lot of professions can say.
Yeah,
I've
I think that's beautiful. I think that's there's some really great overlap here as well. For we had Kendra Toothill on last week, and she was talking this similar idea of moving to the U.S. and she had been in the U.K. as well. And it really comes down to the regulatory bodies in those countries. The skills travel, the skills play wherever you take them. If you take them with the right attitude and you find an avenue or a channel to get in, then you can employ travel as well, which I think a lot of people do, and some of us aren't or are lucky enough to get with teams that travel or organizations that travel, but you can really pair that together nicely if you plan it accordingly or find people like you who have done it and ask good questions. And I think that's a big piece as well. And I never really traveled outside of Canada and sort of the US minus one big hockey trip earlier on in my life. But in doing so in my later years, in my more recent years, the value of seeing this world and understanding that this skill set or this mindset, all of those base foundational pieces can play anywhere is a beautiful thing. It really opens the world up. It really unlocks a lot of doors that I think we feel going through school maybe. And I don't think this is dissimilar to other professions either, but in AT specifically, because we can speak to that. We go through school thinking there's only three ways to do things, and it's, own your own space, be in a pro team, or, take your professor's job. And I think it's great to sort of showcase that this can be done anywhere, and your means to an end can simply be travel and just go and travel and then find something and then make a bit of money there. And then your ideas continue to be fulfilled, and you can really enhance things through your skill set. So the skills travel, they are employable, and then the regulations. And I think this next piece for you've done a lot, like a lot of different places you've been, a lot of different positions or hats that you've worn through this profession as your backbone. There may not be a lot of those structured jobs out there, but there's a ton of work, right? And so I think this is a key message that we can sort of share and showcase for not only the recent grads or the students that are coming through that pick this up, but for really anybody in any walk of life. We're only, if we're only ever in the middle of the box, we'll only ever know what's in the middle of the box. We have to get to the edges a little bit, and you've done that. So through your time in Edinburgh, I think I said it now maybe a little bit more correctly this time. I won't ask you how many beers you drank. I won't ask you how many things happened like that. But your experiences with rugby and then the general population there. What's the perception of your skill set there? People were, I won't lead you anywhere, but after being there, did people have a greater appreciation for sort of what you did and who you were, what your profession was?
Yeah, like I really think so at the end of it, because the physiotherapist that hired me to work with her rugby team, like I met her through my landlord who was a player, that kind of, because she didn't see me work. So it was through a friend of a friend that met me at the pub,
Right.
in Edinburgh.
Right.
And
only 2 beers in, or no beers. You're just playing. So yeah. Anyway, yeah.
10 beers in.
Yeah.
She really opened it up in terms of like, we sat down and had a conversation about identifying concussions, and they had either sports trainers or they had sports physio. So 7 years versus like a CanFit Pro weekend course. So she was like, you're in the middle, like, you know, this stuff. And I'm just telling her how to use me. And then I also went to something called Breakfast in America, where I met the girl who was a performance art, and she was not really athletic in her own sense, but I taught her how to sing using her shoulders back and with her scap setting, and she was mind blown. Like I told her about rehabilitation, and she just like, she snagged it, she catchphrased it, she put it in a lot of her stuff, and she was a psychotherapist, so it was really cool to get her viewpoint on it. And by the end, I was like working with all of her performance artists on breathing techniques, and like I don't know breathing techniques as well as you do. Like you were just teaching it to me a couple days ago, and I wouldn't have had that experience at that point, but she still loved it. She still appreciated the body. The people that just had the appreciation of that, you're not a sports physio, but you're there, but you're not a sports trainer, because they're not where you're at. So even through the end, I had sports physio students that were coming to watch me and coming to watch my games. And like the doc that was with us was like, oh, this is what an athletic therapist is, even though he didn't really know.
Right.
He's like, they're not a sports trainer and they're not sports physio, because they were very like, don't call them what they're not.
Right.
So at the end, it was really cool because I had 3 different jobs. I had 16 main clients in 2.5 years. And like, in a country that doesn't know what you are and they don't have insurance, and that's not even an issue. Like to me, that was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then just my friends that I met always knew the difference between an AT and a physio. That was probably more of the people that I spoke to.
Yeah.
Just because they saw like the things that I'd posted in Canada, and like, June was athletic therapy month, and they still didn't know exactly what it is, but they would see me and come to my games and see what I would, the fractures that I'd set, and like how I'd deal with people with getting, dislocated kneecaps to like get back in. And just, they were like, oh my gosh, like who is this person? And then they called me physio, paramedic, massage, physio Megan, but
you're a wizard. Yeah.
Whatever. But at the end of it, like my little group of like 300 people that I'd really interspersed myself with, like knew what it was. And it was a good feeling, because at the end of the day, whenever you leave like anywhere, what I hope for them to say is, oh, an athletic therapist can do this job, an athletic therapist can do this job. Like it might be a physio or chiro or whatever, but if the next AT ever comes in to put their foot in that door, mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we have one of you and you guys know what you're doing. Like, come on, please come work. Like, that's what I want.
Yeah. And there is definitely room for some advocacy and sort of puffing up our chests and sort of showcasing what it is that athletic therapy is. I think to this day, a lot of people don't know what it is, but I always hesitate to sort of compare, but I certainly walk the line of showcasing what it is. And it's a skill set that is, I think, blends into each one of those categories. There are pieces, and I think there's a seamless transition as like a liaison in the medical space, the paramedical space, wellness, just well-being of human beings. And that's where we found ourselves now sort of shifting into some of the mental health space. And to be quite honest, there's been some backlash from people that are regulated professionals in that space to like, who are you to say mental health? Well, it's a thing that everybody experiences. It's not territorial. If we can help people be a little bit more well, then I think we're doing a good job regardless of titles. But as an athletic therapist, there are so many skills that translate across all of these different I don't want to say silos, but different components, I guess, of life and living and sport or no sport and all these things. So some really beautiful shares that I think are, will be heard, across the country, across the world. And hopefully there is space, at the table for those that are open and willing to say, like, athletic therapists, it's a great profession. They go through a lot of schooling. They get a ton of skills, MSK, and you can niche that as well, right? Like if you want to be a first responder, you can make a career being a first responder. If you want to make your career an MSK in orthopedics, like you can do that as well, or you can go work with a surgeon, or you can do, work with side by side with an RMT or a PT or a chiro or 4 other ATs, whatever you want to do. And that's the beauty of this as well, because you can speak all of those languages. So along with speaking the language of like human movement and the body, you could speak all of those other professional languages as well, which I think is a beautiful thing. So Scotland, and then you drank enough beer and you came back across the pond to Canada. You settled back into Ottawa. Here we are in a pandemic. You're now managing a clinic, an interdisciplinary, a multidisciplinary clinic. How do your skills play out there? How do you find that role? And so many questions when you're managing that many people.
It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, honestly, but it just reminded me of like having a team, because I came out of the university setting. So I was at U Ottawa for 2 years. Yeah. And I found that with the football team, I had 122 people asking what was going on every single day with them. And now I only have 22 and they're mature adults, which is very, very nice. Some of them act more mature than others, but that's fine. Everyone's just different, right? And it's my dream space, because one of my biggest downfalls as a therapist is I wanted to help everybody. And I always, the younger I was, or like the more fresh I was like, I'm going to make everybody 100%. Like, that's just the way it is. It's great. And I'm going to feel awesome when all of that is achieved. But really, healthcare is dynamic and every person will feel pain at different times and if they're active, et cetera. So I got really overwhelmed at U Ottawa with the mental health stuff, and like the youth population just kind of got to me. But I see that a little bit in being a clinic manager. Like, my first and foremost thing is making sure that the practitioners have everything they need to obviously work. But then also just trying to pair the best patient with the best therapist. And sometimes it's not always skills based, it's personalities based, or they're like background based, because
it makes a difference. Yep.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. I like it because it's just another reminder that like every kind of college has their issues and everyone has their ups and downs, whether you're regulated, whether you're not. I'm setting up peer reviews. I'm setting up having Ottawa Public Health coming to our clinic. Like, to me, it's all the kind of not boring stuff. But when I signed up for athletic therapy, I definitely wasn't, signing up for the administrative policies and procedures part of it. Yep. But at the end of the day, that's how you run a clinic, and that's how you run a business, and that's how you make money, and that's how you kind of, think about just like the second half of life, I guess. Because as much as I love running across the field at a screaming rugby player, like, I know I can't do that forever. And also just with the seasonal stuff and with COVID, especially, like, I took another job. I didn't think COVID was going to be this hard. Like, I thought sports were going to come back, and that was really breaking my heart, because I was leaving my, U Ottawa sports athletic therapy job for an administrative role. And at first I carried a lot of guilt, but then I thought about how I can speak to everybody, like every insurance company that calls and asks for, oh, can you get your massage therapist on? And I'm like, yeah, by the way, like, do you have athletic therapy on? Like, no, you don't. Like, let's talk to you about that. Like, people trying to just sell the clinic stuff, they'll always talk to me first. So like the supplies part is easy, of getting everything that you need, just who to order from. Like, I deal with Kinematics a lot because they're a nice little Ottawa place that's really nice to work with. Admin side, like, I have a great admin team that I love, and like, I grew up as an admin first before, like, when I was a physio assistant. So like, if you're a practitioner that has never done your own admin, like, just it's invaluable skill to have. It just helps the clinic run smoother. And then just managing with personalities and like booking conflicts and hiring the right people and keeping those people happy, and identifying when your staff is burning out, trying to get customers to not be mad about COVID strains changing often, keeping the place as clean as possible. It's really cool because like we have pelvic health physiotherapy, we have psychologists there, we have naturopathic medicine, and it's just nice because we kind of refer into each other. So I laugh because whenever we say, oh, what are you wearing, etc., and like, even though I'm MSK, I can't do needling, so I send for needling. Like, even though I'm MSK, I know as an AT we're supposed to like be all over concussions. I don't personally love concussions. I send them to my physio Allison, who does an amazing job at concussions, and she's passionate about it. So I'm happy to share the wealth. Because to me, a good clinic and a good therapist will always, when in doubt, refer out, or at least they'll always collaborate, because it's what's best for the patient, and what's best for one person might not be for the board.
Yes.
So it's just juggling those daily things, which is hilarious. But then also just marketing to doctors' offices. So like now I spend a huge chunk of time trying to make appointments with doctors that don't know what it is. And it's kind of a double whammy. I get to sit there and plug my clinic with 22 great health professionals and docs and stuff. And then I get to drop in like, oh, athletic therapy. Like, do you know what that is? Because not a lot of administrative people would go to those clinics to explain kind of the knowledge that I have.
Right.
explaining everything with our clinic. And then if doctors can ask questions and if I can answer them, like that's the funnest part of, I don't know, my position and just like the way that Ottawa is, because we're nice and small and we're a good, really, really nice community when it comes to the athletic therapy community, and we like support each other. So even if I'm going to a place where they might not be really close to me, I'm going to refer them to, you know, Kathleen De Jesus or, you know, Jess Keller or someone else that's down the road that I trust in, and maybe they have their RMT, maybe they have their craniosacral, like just, I want to be able to be that quarterback that any general population person, that anyone that needs help and is reaching out and wants to get help, especially in an MSK way or any way that I can help, I'm going to grab them and say, okay, like, here's where I'm going to put you. I'm going to check up on you after that. Make sure that do you have insurance? Do you not have insurance? Oh, if you don't have insurance, I might put you in a different direction because it's cheaper. Like just right. the connections that I have in Ottawa. So it's just a nice place to be. It's a nice little home, I hope. I can't wait for sports to open again because I miss losing on the sports sideline and, you know, talking to the coaches and the kids and everything. But until then, it's going to be Zoom calls and, you know, dropping off massage therapy gift certificates and stuff like that, just to get people in the clinic to hopefully feel normal again.
Right. Yeah. It's a difficult, you know, difficult scenario. And I often sort of just wish, you know, we could sit in a ballpark and watch a baseball game or, you know, do these things, but c'est la vie, it'll be when it'll be time, and that will be the timing of the timing that happens. And that'll be the thing. But you touched on some amazing stuff. And again, like coming back around to this idea of athletic therapy, or you as that quarterback. And I use the term like liaison because everything kind of filters through, and then you can refer out. And I don't think referral is ever a bad thing. In fact, I think the humility to refer out makes you the best therapist possible, is that we can't handle everything for everybody. We can't be everything to everybody. And if it's about collecting paychecks and taking money instead of collecting lifelong patients who trust in you because they truly have their best interest, I think it's a no doubter which way we have to lean, and it helps to flip sort of the model of dependence on practitioners if we are helping one another out and trying to get patients out the door a little bit better than when they walked in the door. You touched on a few things. Making everyone better was sort of that initial thought. I think that's all of our thoughts initially coming out of school. And I had a really interesting conversation this week with a lead therapist at one of the youth sports institutions, and he was saying he struggled a little bit this leading up to COVID, because he was trying to be everything to everybody. And he said, I wasn't necessarily physically burnt out, but COVID kind of saved me because I was emotionally and mentally burnt out. And we just had a nice long conversation about, well, to be honest, like a tutu about our platform that we've developed with performance wellness and putting the human first and adding some mindfulness and some meditation and some movement and putting stripping away all these titles. And you touched on it, you know, your identity, you leaving Ottawa was tough. You felt bad. You felt like you were losing a part of yourself, and you know, a pandemic that really pairs us back to, you know, sitting at home a lot more often than not, not having all those things that we identify with or are used to. It really strips us down to, well, it strips us right down to the bones. You know, if we're going to use the pun, we might as well, to bare bones. And this is where we go. So you touched on it. You touched on employee burnout. You touched on your own burnout. As a manager, you are wearing, you know, a number of hats and managing personalities, not just personalities, schedules, not just schedules, advocating for a profession that you feel very passionate about, not just and so on and so forth down the line. We had the opportunity to connect through another colleague of ours recommended, I think, you to come on board and join this recalibration workshop. So I hosted this recalibration workshop, and this week was an intro workshop. We did a little bit of breath work, and there were a couple times that you had a little bit of feedback, and I don't want to share your feedback if you're not comfortable, but taking the time for you. Can you just talk maybe a little bit about that? Because I think that's critical. I also think that's critical for students coming out right now, that you don't have to be everything for everybody. In fact, you don't have to be anything to anybody but yourself right now in this moment, because I think that's a non-negotiable during a pandemic.
Yeah, like especially making your own schedule and just abiding by that one. Like the biggest thing, when I came out of Ottawa, I felt like I'm gonna call it like a PTSD from like phone calls and from emails, because every time I answered an email or phone call, it was never good. even though the stress kind of changed. But
Mhm.
during the season, I kind of accepted that. But going into integrate, I kind of thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to answer the phone. It's going to be bad. But once you turn it around and just, you had good experiences where you can book people in, they feel better after, they thank you for it. It was great. With the identification of like burnout, that's one of the biggest things that I always knew happened. Like I felt like as an athletic therapist, we're used to working weird hours in general anyway, and we kind of thrive off being busy, but there's like a thrive point where it kind of tips and you just are just going and running on empty. And that's where I was at the end of the pandemic, or just the beginning of the pandemic. My emotional energy was gone, but I also just feel that the kids' emotional energy too. And that's where mental health kind of sprang up to the forefront for me, because I would say I used to be ignorant, and I grew up in a family that was like, walk it off, don't show your feelings, like, don't
Mhm.
cry 'cause you're weak, that kind of thing. And that is just like exploded in my face, I feel, after COVID, because we were never allowed just to be sad or just be upset or just to be like this. Like you always had to put on a tough face. But through my own like kind of mental health journey with this COVID, and like with things like breathing techniques and learning how to meditate, like learning how to shut off your brain, because like I think it was you that said thoughts are like clouds. They're going to come, they're going to go through, they're going to stay, they're going to saturate for a little bit, they're going to be gloomy or what have you, but they're going to pass. So just knowing that that will always pass was a huge, huge relief on something that I felt just like go, go, go. And even at the clinic, it's been go, go, go since I started in July, and I was kind of self-taught everything that I kind of know right now.
Mhm.
Because the other girl, she left for COVID and they didn't have anybody for 3 or 4 months. So it was just trying to like push things back together again. But psychology is huge in terms of getting better and just being able to shut off your brain, because if you can't do that, then your body's just going to fail. And like I think everyone during COVID, if they haven't had a break or just like a crash, mental crash, then tell me your secrets, because I'm hearing a lot about it lately, and people's bodies are just physically drained and just physically done. So I do think that things like the meditation, the breathing, just centering yourself and having yourself come back down to just a neutral, so your heartbeat just goes, so you're not just constantly in fight or flight, is I think everyone should know. It's kind of like, I feel like everyone should know anatomy. I feel like everyone should know how to peer something or tensor something, just because it's beneficial for your body. But you can't see your brain waves and you can't see mental health. So to me, it's going to be a stigma until it looks like a snapped broken bone. But you got to like be aware of what
Mhm.
your body and your brain is telling your body, because it's crazy, especially during a time of COVID when you're all stuck in. You can only hear, some people can only hear themselves think, which is crazy. And that's just why people are going kind of stir into madness. But things like psychology and things like breathing, those are just things that we need to know, hands down.
Yeah.
As
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of space for that. And I think um, through our profession, through professions that are paramedical in nature, or MSK in nature, or orthopedic, like we understand bits and pieces of this, and you start to see this trickle out through COVID that like, hey, guess what? Movement's good for you. And people who move a lot are less prone to more severe COVID related illness. So that's not new news. The pandemic, this virus is new, but we know the foundations, and you've touched on so many building blocks to generating a solid foundation. And I truly think that now in a pandemic, it doesn't have to be through me or through the recalibration workshops, but I think reaching out to one another for support, and truly acknowledging that this is shitty, this is really hard, and just being able to say that and having somebody say, you're right, and not like it's gonna get better, don't worry. Like, worry, like you're allowed to worry. And so what you do with that worry is not wave it away, not erase it, but acknowledge it, become aware of it, and just like we would with an ankle sprain, like triage it. You need to put compression on it to support it. You need to tape it in its initial days, or get it in a walking boot for a few days.
Mhm.
But we can't just sort of push it away and say, it'll be better when it gets better. We need to address it. And I am not a mental health practitioner, but certainly a mental health advocate, in that we all do experience health that tips, just like we experience physical health that tips, one and the same. And so, so it was great. It was a great share this week. A couple other practitioners in the recalibration workshop. We've had teachers and all kinds of different people come through there, and it's amazing to see the shares that people are willing to take on, and to take the time just for the self, because this is something that I was in that busy mode just like you were, in terms of like hit the treadmill and just start running and hope that you can hold on, or use your hands if and when you need to. But I don't know. I just think it's now more than ever we can slow down, and if we're not slowing down, we need to find a way to do so. But anyway, so we'll jump back in. Ottawa, leave Ottawa, go back to Ottawa, leave Ottawa, go back to Ottawa. So things are settled in now. How's the clinic? How is your clinic currently operating? Are you sort of summer in, summer out, summer in person, mostly Zoom, or a combination of all of the above?
I was in person for the most part. This last month I've been shut down. I do have my kin, but I will take kin patients at my clinic, and it's usually through like the the Blue Cross program. So it's still working within the physio, but I love manual hands-on stuff, but I just don't do it as much at my clinic anymore because my thumbs are getting sore. I'm getting lazy, but I need to get those back and stronger. But I like to do the exercise prescription. That's where I feel like the most beneficial stuff happens, because if a person can move correctly, it's going to just serve them till the end of their life. So I like to do a lot of that stuff. We do a lot of, I'd say we do like 10 to 15% of virtual stuff, because I just feel in Ottawa, at least, people still are coming in for the hands-on. Like our clinic is very separate, so you don't need to be like right on top of each other. Mm-hmm. But the virtual stuff I find is hard. I've done maybe 10 to 15% of them. It takes a lot of cueing, and it's hard with a older patient, perhaps with not as much kinesthetic awareness, and getting them to touch their nose is very difficult, let alone trying to get them in a good position or have them describe what they feel to you.
Right.
So still a lot of hands-on. I know that at my cottage in the summer, I go up there and bring my plinth, and then I help kind of serve the population, and they're all retired, but they have like the fun injuries, like the frozen shoulder and the stuff that you can really break through. So I feel really beneficial with those ones. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of virtual up there because we barely have the internet. But yeah, I would say it's still, I want to say like 90% hands-on for the people I'm seeing, but I'm not seeing nearly as many people as I was last year at this time.
Right.
Yeah, like my normal patient load for myself on a good week would be like 15 to 20 on top of admin. But lately it's just been, 3 to 5. But it's half insurance stuff. It's half just COVID scared. But right. I have like maybe 5 or 6 regulars that I'll see on a monthly basis whenever it's allowed. But
these are the times we have to navigate them. We have to navigate them the way that everybody's comfortable doing so, whether that's, vaccine or waiting for things to happen, and all of the things that everybody's navigating every day. So I think there's a lot of great lessons here, Megan, and I really appreciate you sharing not just your story, but the advocacy of this profession. I think that goes a long, long way for people, definitely in this country and abroad. You've taken it to Scotland. That's somewhere that I've never been, and that's probably hasn't seen a ton of athletic therapists. And so that goes a long, long way. So I don't know if you're comfortable doing so, but I'll just put you on the spot. If you have an email or handle or Facebook, what's the easiest place for people to reach out if they have questions to get in contact with you?
If they have any questions, you can definitely email me. It's Megan_Stewart@live.ca, and I spell my name MEGAN _STEWART@live.ca. And I would just tell people that are struggling with jobs, like apply to the kin jobs, apply to the PTA jobs, apply to the jobs that don't say athletic therapist, because it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that they don't know what you are yet. Mm-hmm. So the amount of jobs that I've gotten from just scrolling Kijiji or doing something that was outside of what I know is my athletic therapy sports title, it's incredible what you can do once you just go and just teach them what you know, because that's what they want. They want somebody who knows that stuff, and we definitely know that stuff. So don't be shy. Don't feel like it's a slap in the face to your profession or anything like that, because that's just where you get started. And then after you leave that job, hopefully they'll be asking for 5 more ATs after you leave. So yeah, anyone and have any questions about Scotland or anything like that, I'll be glad to help. I can.
Amazing. Some great shares, and even continuing on in terms of just pushing this forward and having more resources for everybody out there to connect with. I really appreciate this. This is your time. This is our time. Invaluable. So for everybody checking in, everybody listening in on this, thank you again. This is session 71. Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast, brought to you by Mobility Tape, Epic, Benchmark Athletics. We'll go again next week, same time, same channel, same place, with a colleague and good friend of mine, Dan Noble, who's the lead performance director of performance at Grit Athletics and recently named to the head of hockey at Upper Canada College, works with a number of athletes in the pro space, CFL, NHL, Hockey Canada, lacrosse, NLL, all of these things. Great human being, great partner, great father, and a great friend. So Dan will be on next Sunday. And we will tune that one in. But for this week, Megan, final closing thoughts for you with this. If somebody were to ask you 15 years ago, do you think you would be in this role ever in your life? Would you have said yes?
Yes.
Beautiful. So you found all of these things along the way, and they have. Would it be fair to say that all of the pieces have connected this puzzle for you? All of your experiences along the way, have there been some things that you didn't or that did directly lead to this role as well?
No, just like looking back at my whole history and like the being a kid and wrapping my body in tensor bandages and really like, watching people get hurt. And I hate saying that in like I love it way, but like being able to calm somebody down with an injury has always been something I've done. So an administration, I've always been in clinics my whole life. Like I can't picture myself anywhere else. And where else would I want to be where I could advocate? But on the same level with other regulated health professions, sitting there talking about AT every single day with some of the like best and brightest in Ottawa, I just don't see why we can't all do that. And so just want people to get over that hump of like that first 5 years of confidence finding in athletic therapy. Just because we don't have a title that everybody knows doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing, because we totally do. Like we totally do. Get out there, go tell people what you know, go like collaborate, don't be shy. Because it's not a competition, it's like it's a collaboration, and like as long as people know what we are, whether the general population or other therapists, like there's no harm in that. Like we're here to promote good movement. Like how can you argue with any of that?
Absolutely. A skill set that plays, skills that travel, a foundational knowledge that can speak any language. Really appreciate this time. Thank you once again. Be well, stay safe, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com, CONSULT@firststartherapy.com, on Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.